Page 123 of the Opening Eyes lecture by President Daisaku Ikeda. I can go? All right. It starts out, I will be the pillar of Japan, standing alone and dedicating one's life to the vow of Kosen Rufu, page 123. Those who lead victorious lives, striving with a standalone spirit and steadfastly upholding the correct teacher, are free of the slightest doubt or regret. Their state of mind is like a clear, cloudless blue sky. This I will state, let the gods forsake me, let all persecutions assail me, still I will give my life for the sake of the law, from the Gosho. Whenever I read this inspiring passage that could be called the climax of the opening of the eyes, my entire life resonates with Nichiren's sublime spirit, and I feel the stirring of immense courage and joy. These are words I engraved deeply in my life at the time of my inauguration as third Soka Gakkai president on May 3rd, 1960. The main theme here is the standalone spirit. Kosen Rufu forever depends upon courageous individuals rising into action on their own. I'll say that again. What did he just say there?
Stand-alone spirit.
Yeah, the standalone spirit. Okay, the main theme here is standalone spirit. What's that mean? It means you will do Kosen Rufu yourself if no one else does it. That's exactly what it means. Standalone spirit means you don't care. You're not. It's not dependent upon other people agreeing. It's not dependent upon other people perceiving and understanding it. And this is the attitude of Nichiren. Is the attitude we are to adopt. You know, now here's a guy that was in 13th century Japan going against the grain of all the previous teachings historically, qualifying that he had come up with something that was new, that was completely put into place that in a fashion that was threatening to everyone else, because part of his teaching is you got to give up all the incorrect teachings, right? So he's saying the main theme here is the standalone spirit. Kosen Rufu forever depends upon courageous individuals rising into action on their own. That includes preaching. Rising into action means propagation of the law, right? Okay, so it can be said that the history of Buddhism commenced the moment Shakyamuni having awakened to the supremely noble state of life that exists within all human beings, Buddhahood, stood up alone with the resolve to awaken others. And the widespread propagation of the correct teaching into the eternal future of the latter day of the law was set into motion when Nichiren Daishonin, the Buddha of the latter day, singularly resolved to undergo any and all hardships in order to teach the people of this defiled age how to base their lives on the supreme state of Buddhahood. Everybody understands, right? His teaching of the Buddhism of the sowing did not exist prior to his advent. Carrying on Nichiren's spirit in modern times, the first and second presidents of the Soka Gakkai, Tanesaburo Makaguchi and Josei Toda, each single-handedly pursued religious reform and human revolution. That's what they did. Yes, that one time about Mr. Makaguchi. I too, as a disciple, united in a spirit of the oneness with these two great mentors, stood up alone to open an unprecedented path of worldwide Kosen Rufu. This next paragraph is very important. When one struggles while maintaining a genuine standalone spirit, other courageous people will definitely follow. In the Soka Gakkai, many honorable, nameless, ordinary people, like everyone around this table, have stood up one after another, leading to the development of our present global network dedicated to the cause of good and the correct teaching of Nichiren Buddhism. So what did he say? The global network. What's he say? What's it dedicated to?
Kosen Rufu.
It's dedicated to Kosen Rufu, but how has he qualified what Kosen Rufu actually is?
Stood out one after another.
This is the key here. The key is the last couple words, right? Where he says, in it, he says, many have honorable, nameless, ordinary people have stood up one after another, leading to the development of our present global, not 40 years ago, present global, because 40 years ago the global didn't exist yet, right? Daisaku Ikeda is the one in 1960 that started taking this outside of Japan as a lay organization, as a lay entity, all right? But what was his purpose in doing that? It was to actually plant the seeds of the Buddhism of the sowing, okay, as perceived and practiced by President Makaguchi and President Toda, and correctly passed on President Ikeda and those nameless, countless, honorable, ordinary Japanese members. This is called actual Ichinen Sansen is what he's talking about. And how do you get there? It's a correct understanding of the teaching itself. So he says, our present global network dedicated to the cause of good, because we want to help others, we want to help them achieve the same state of Buddhahood that's available to us through this practice, okay, and the correct teaching. The correct teaching is the Soka philosophy, I got to tell you. You know, there are a lot of teachings. When he's talking about the correct teaching of Nichiren Buddhism, he's talking about the Soka philosophy. He's talking about the teaching that he is teaching you in this book as the mentor. Do you understand? All right, so he says, dispelling people's deep-seated doubts, reading from the Gosho again. This is pages 280 and 281 from the opening of the eyes that Aishonin says, this I will state, let the gods forsake me. Let all persecutions assail me. Still I will give my life for the sake of the law. Shariputra practiced the way of the Bodhisattva for 60 kalpas, but he abandoned the way because he could not endure the ordeal of the Brahmin who begged for his eye. Everybody understands that, right? Those of those who received the seeds of Buddhahood in the remote past, and those who did so from the sons of the great universal wisdom, the Buddha, great universal wisdom excellence, many abandoned the seeds and suffered in hell for the long periods of numberless major world system dust particle kalpas and major world system dust particle kalpas, respectively, because they followed evil companions. Was that clear enough? Should I read it over again? I screwed it up a few times. Let me say it again. This I will state, let the gods forsake me, let all persecutions assail me. Still I will give my life for the sake of the law. Shariputra practiced the way of the Bodhisattva for 60 kalpas, but he abandoned the way because he could not endure the ordeal of the Brahmin who begged for his eye. Of those who received the seeds of Buddhahood in the remote past, and those who did so from the sons of Buddha, great universal wisdom excellence, many abandoned the seeds and suffered in hell for the long periods of numberless major world system dust particle kalpas and major world system dust particle kalpas, respectively, because they followed evil companions. Does everybody know what the difference is between numberless major world system dust particle kalpas and majorless world system dust particle kalpas? They're the two things that he clarifies in the 16th chapter. One is he says, you know, grind all the worlds into dust and go, and then one particle, that's a major world system dust particle kalpas. To take each one of those particles of dust, turn it into world, grind it all into dust again, and repeat the process is numberless major world system dust particle kalpas. Okay? So he says, whether tempted by good or threatened by evil. So what does he qualify? As I've said many, many times, there are two ways to be affected by the devil of the sixth heaven and have your faith discouraged. Okay? One comes from so much good stuff happening, you become complacent. Yeah. you're not needing, benefit, so your daimoku goes down, and you begin to drift. Okay, and the other one, of course, is adversity that is such that it makes you pause and wonder, why are you going through this and why are you dealing with it? So he says, whether tempted by good or threatened by evil, however, it doesn't matter whether it's good or evil that takes you off the path. If one casts aside the Lotus Sutra, if one quits practicing, one destines oneself for hell. Here I will make a great vow. Though I might be offered the rulership of Japan if I would only abandon the Lotus Sutra, accept the teachings of the Meditation Sutra, and look forward to rebirth in the Pure Land, though I might be told that my father and mother will have their heads cut off if I do not recite the Nimbutsu, whatever obstacles I might encounter, so long as persons of wisdom do not prove my teachings to be false, I will never yield. All other troubles are no more to me than dust before the wind. That's what I was doing last week. I will be the pillar of Japan. I will be the eyes of Japan. I will be the great ship of Japan. This is my vow, and I will never forsake it. In a sense, second column, page 124. In a sense, this section of the opening of the eyes could be regarded as a key source of inspiration for today's magnificent spread of worldwide Kosen Rufu. It is here that we are presented with the conclusion that Nichiren is indeed the votary of the Lotus Sutra of the latter day of the law. Let's begin with a quick review of the Daishonin's discussion leading up to this section. First, in terms of the overall structure of the opening of the eyes, this section comprises the conclusion to Nichiren's lengthy answer to people's doubts as to how he could truly be the votary of the Lotus Sutra when he is constantly persecuted and fails to receive the protection of the heavenly deities, a metaphor in Nichiren Buddhism for the protective functions of life in the universe. Notice that he's put that in parenthetically to qualify to you that he's not talking about entities outside of you as you would normally think of Buddhist gods or those kinds of things. He's talking about functions, protective functions, actually emanate from the positive influence of the Lotus Sutra in your life manifested as Buddhahood in your present form. Because you don't realize that is what's happening when you're chanting Daimoka to the Gohonzon. In the course of his answer, spanning almost 40 pages, he closely scrutinizes various sutra passages and confirms in detail that his own conduct completely accords with the Lotus Sutra, especially in view of the 20-line passage referring to the three powerful enemies in the Encouraging Devotion chapter, the 13th chapter. He concludes that because he has called forth these formidable foes, he must, as described here, be a votary of the Lotus Sutra. Further, he explains logically from three different perspectives as to why the sutra's votary is persecuted and fails to receive the protection of the heavenly deities. Everybody remembers those three, right?
Yes.
By offering a finely drawn argument based on documentary and theoretical proof, he thoroughly answers the questions people have about him. He does not stop here, however. This is because the fundamental delusion that produces doubts about him in the minds of the general public and also his followers has not yet been completely dispelled. This fundamental delusion boils down to ignorance about slander of the law, and it is the root of people's doubts about the votary of the Lotus Sutra. So what did he talk about there? What did he just qualify there? Yes, of course, the first sentence. He does not stop there, however. This is because the fundamental delusion that produces doubts about him in the minds of the general public and also his followers has not yet been completely dispelled. How can that be stated? Because if that fundamental delusion is completely dispelled, one perceives one as being the Buddha as well. Mm-hmm. Okay? Do you understand? Mm-hmm. That's what he's saying. He says this fundamental delusion boils down to ignorance, not being aware of, slander of the law. What is slander of the law? To not believe in the Buddha nature of yourself and others. That is the primary function of the devil of the sixth heaven, of which all slander arises from. Right? That's what we've already been studying and been taught, correct? Mm-hmm. So he says, this fundamental delusion boils down to ignorance about slander of the law, and it is the root of people's doubts. Why is it the root of people's doubts? Because it's the basis of fundamental darkness. It's the basis of the devil of the sixth heaven. Therefore, if it's the basis, it's the root. Get it? It's the root about their doubts, because their doubts are emanating from fundamental darkness, blocking their capacity to see the Buddha nature in all things. Understand? They can only see it maybe theoretically. They don't have any actual experience with it. The votary of the Lotus Sutra in the latter day is committed to battling slander of the law, the fundamental evil. Now, does that qualify that that's just Nichiren? No. Absolutely not. It says that if you are the votary of the Lotus Sutra, if that's what you perceive your life to be and what you strive to be in the way you lead and conduct your life, then you are committed to battling slander of the law, the fundamental evil. There are those, however, who are ignorant of the meaning of this struggle, even though they read it over and over and over and over again. They just can't perceive it. It's strictly theoretical, and it's based on life condition.
Yes.
When it's theoretical, once their life condition goes in the toilet, so does any capacity to think of that in that theoretical foundation go into the toilet. They immediately start to blame other people, other circumstances, anything they can outsource the blaming from, rather than focusing on the reality that we all create our own karma. There is no one else responsible for what we experience besides ourselves. Right? So there are those, however, who are ignorant of the meaning of the struggle. Even though the Lotus Sutra predicts that its practitioners will encounter great persecutions in the latter day, and even though Nichiren clearly and logically explains the reasons for the failure of the heavenly deities to lend their protection, people still cannot fathom why he goes out of his way to fight slander of the law and experience unbelievable hardships. They can't understand why they would have to be expected to do that as well. Because of this, the Daishonin conveys his personal vow, thereby revealing his state of life as a votary of the Lotus Sutra who battles slander of the law, and to create the example that we are to follow in our own lives in the latter day as Buddhas. Do you understand? Okay. Prior to this section, Nichiren addresses people's doubts through explanations based on documentary and theoretical proof. Here, however, he strives to break through the fundamental delusion in people's hearts by citing his own way of life. What is his own way of life? The proof of actual fact.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, that's what we do. Anybody can debate over doctrine. Anybody can debate over theory. But only real practitioners can express with their very life actual proof. Huge difference. Okay? By citing his own way of life, which is based on an unshakable vow. That's why, again, this vow, this vow, this vow. How many times have we said the vow is the basis of everything, right? President Ikeda has said that. He has encouraged us to understand Nichiren Buddhism on the basis of the vow. Yeah. What is the vow? It's the fifth of the 6 stages of practice. Okay? That's when you start to do Kosen Rufu for the sake of the law rather than for the sake of yourself and benefit. Do you understand?
Yes.
That's the threshold that's been crossed. You are now living the life of the Buddha. When you do that, you may not recognize yourself as already being the Buddha, but the 5th stage, you're already the Buddha. You just don't understand it. That's why the 6th stage says, when finally, at last, one realizes, one finally realizes. That's what it says. It's nothing more than realizing what this 5th stage actually was in its reality. Do you understand? Okay, your life had taken you along, finally get to the 5th stage, but you're still riding a train that you're not the conductor of. You're not the engineer of. 6th stage is realizing, I'm driving this goddamn train, and I'm the source of all of its energy. Okay? This section is like a compassionate lion's roar aimed at purifying, taking away slanderous misconceptions, and elevating the lives of all people by opening the door, trying to create access, trying to get them to enter, get them, all those 4 things that I told you the Buddha makes his advent for, right? You can't make them enlightened, but you can show them how to become enlightened. You can lead them up. Your life can be the inducement to get them to try. Do you understand? Okay, so he says also in this section, Nietzsche teaches that the fighting spirit with which he carries out his vow is the very essence of a votary. Which means if you are a votary, you must have this vow as well.
Yes.
And the function of him taking the vow is to demonstrate to you the life state you must strive to achieve, which is not different than his own. Okay? And he's not special. And you don't have to be perfect before you can do that. All right? Here, he goes beyond documentary and theoretical proof. This entire passage pulses with the spirit of the votary of the Lotus Sutra that Nietzsche embodies, that we all strive to emulate. He opens with, "This I will state," thus signaling that although he has offered various explanations of the persecutions faced by the Lotus Sutra's votary, he is now going to state the most important point. He then declares, "Let the gods forsake me, let all persecutions assail me, still I will give my life for the sake of the law." In other words, and President Kate, paraphrases, if the gods are going to abandon me, then let them. Yeah, like I could give a shit. I am not dependent upon God's protecting me. I produce my own protection. If I have to encounter many persecutions, then so be it. My sole desire is to stake my life on this struggle. Do you understand? That's a person speaking with no fear and absolute faith. Okay? And don't forget, when he's stating this, all the chips are down. He's on Sado Island, man. He doesn't know. There's no way of knowing for sure he's ever going to get off that thing. And he's still talking about my teaching on into the 10,000 years and beyond of Mappo. Whoa. My sole desire is to stake my life on this struggle. That's why President Keda paraphrases it as such. That's exactly what it is. My sole desire is to stake my life on this struggle. As we all do. In this passage, the Daishonin reveals his immense state of life, rising high above the doubts and criticisms held by the general populace, as well as his followers. It shows his profound inner commitment as a votary of the Lotus Sutra, transcending the mundane desire for divine protection or freedom from difficulties. Transcending the mundane desire for divine protection or freedom from difficulties. As far as Nietzsche is concerned, there is something more important than whether we receive the protection of the heavenly deities. Something we must risk our lives to accomplish, no matter how daunting the obstacles. And that is the attainment of Buddhahood by all people, the highest good, which is the great vow Shakyamuni proclaimed in the Lotus Sutra. In other words, it is Kosen Rufu, the actualization of that vow. This is what Nichiren fought to achieve, an aspiration beyond the realm of mundane cares and attachments that preoccupied all society, including his followers. Are you with me? Mm-hmm. All right. A votary of the Lotus Sutra is a person of fighting spirit who makes the Buddha's great vow his or her own, and who strives amid all manner of obstacles to accomplish that vow in the evil age after the Buddha's passing. Nothing more, nothing less. If your behavior falls into the intent of that paragraph, you're doing everything right. And if it doesn't, you have a little bit further to go. I'll say it again. A votary of the Lotus Sutra is a person of fighting spirit, because that just means you're struggling to do your very best at all times. You're never complacent to continue to grow, to give yourself the opportunity to grow. Okay? Who makes the Buddha's great vow his or her own. I will be the ship. I will be the eyes. I will be the pillar. Okay? and who strives amid all manner of obstacles to accomplish that vow. All right, which in other words, when you make that vow, you are going to get hit with a lot of shit because you are now the Buddha. When you make that vow, that's the vow of the Buddha. So you're going to face adversity. Who strives amid all manner of obstacles and to accomplish that vow in the evil age after the Buddha's passing. That means you don't give up to the last moment of your life, doesn't it? Okay? Especially in the defiled latter day, unless we spread Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, the mystic law, the heart of the Lotus Sutra, and the teaching for all people to attain Buddhahood, we cannot accomplish this great vow. Okay, so the entire predication of the great vows being accomplished is the spread of the law of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is a teaching of life's inner workings and essence. It's the teaching of truth. Slander of the Lotus Sutra, which causes disbelief in the mystic law to arise in people's hearts, functions as a negative influence that moves people away from attaining Buddhahood. By obstructing the realization of the Buddha's great vow, slander functions as an enemy, and therefore, by necessity, the votary of the Lotus Sutra in the latter day must be a person who battles slander of the law. The vow for Kosen Rufu is an expression of the fighting spirit of practitioners of the Lotus Sutra. That is why the Daishonin elucidates his vow as the sutra's votary in this section of the opening of the eyes. But how are you going to understand that if you never study the opening of the eyes as a gosho? And how are you, because that's where the vow is contained. The vow is contained in the specificity of a statement only in the opening of the eyes. So if you don't read the opening of the eyes, how are you going to know about what the essence of practice is? If you don't read President Ikeda's understanding of it, how are you going to expand that to be something that you can influence others with? Okay? So this taking this vow is not some process of going like, okay, yippee, I'm part of the club. It's action and action and action and action and action, year after year, decade after decade, till you die. Okay? Understand that. That's what Daisaku Ikeda is doing. Did he ever get to a point where he retired? No. And what has been the function of his life in these last few decades? Last 30 years at least. Teach, 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 teach. Teach, 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 teach. Correct understanding. That's the difficult thing. You know, to just have access to this and wing it is not so difficult to do. But to find the correct understanding is really only available to you if you read and pursue your Buddhahood through action. How many of you have been practicing longer than 10 years? Okay, most all of you. Okay. How many district meetings have you been to where they discuss Buddhism in these terms? 0 I got from one person, okay? 0. Where else are you going to find this out then? When the hell are you going to read it? You've been practicing for 10 years? 20 years maybe? When are you going to get after it and do it? Okay? It isn't going to happen because you got a good warm fuzzy feeling inside. Okay? There's lots of people that have good warm fuzzy feelings for all kinds of reasons. We can't hang our hat on that. Being the Buddha is required for us to be able to express this correctly to others. This is Muki washing. This is doubt-free faith. This is actual Ichinen Sanzen. Going on. The vow for Kosen Rufu is an expression of the fighting spirit of practitioners of the Lotus Sutra. That is why the Daishonin elucidates his vow as the sutra's votary in this section of the opening of the eyes. Non-regression is the essence of faith. So what's non-regression? What does non-regression mean? It means we never go backwards. Okay, that's non-regression. Non-regression is not to regress, right? Which means we don't have to have the pressure of progressing every single day. Do you understand? We don't focus on perfection. We focus on the understanding of the truth of our existence. Okay, so we don't ever go backwards. That's the influence of the devil of the sixth heaven. But at the same time, we don't have to make progress every day. We just have to not go backwards. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm saying that after you chant for almost 50 years, there will be long periods of times when maybe you weren't doing it exactly the way you were supposed to be doing it. Okay? But you didn't give up your faith. Mm. You didn't keep trying. You didn't keep wondering. Why am I not? There's something I'm missing here. You didn't stop studying. You didn't stop chanting. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. That's non-regression. Mm-hmm. All right? That's thy shown his mercy. All he asks is that the progress that you make, don't give up. Mm-hmm. For any reason. Hang on to that progress. Mm-hmm. If you stay after it, you'll see it start to reinitiate itself as progress again. There might be a point in time where it seems like, God damn it! You know? What do I got to do? Continue. Continue. That's what you got to do. Because if you will continue, you will see that what that goddamn it was the frustration of the devil of the sixth heaven trying to stop you. But you didn't let him. Because you got pissed off and you pushed through anyhow. Rather than saying, this bullshit. You keep fighting.
Give up is a lot easier.
It's so easy to give up. It's so difficult to continue. Yeah. Nietzsche understands that. Why do you think he's saying, I got to take this vow? Because unless you take this vow and mean it, the shit that will hit the fan is going to blow you off your seat. Okay? All right, so non-regression is the essence of faith. What then is the most indispensable requirement for leading a life dedicated to this vow? It is a spirit of non-regression. A vow can only be called true if we uphold it and strive to fulfill it throughout our lives. For precisely this reason, a spirit of non-regression is essential. That is why Nietzsche teaches the following passage. Shariputra practiced the way of the Bodhisattva for 60 kalpas, but he abandoned the way because he could not endure the ordeal of the Brahmin who begged for his eye. Of those who received the seeds of Buddhahood in the remote past, and those who did so from the sons of the Buddha, great universal wisdom excellence, many abandoned the seeds and suffered in hell for long periods of numberless major world system dust particle kalpas and major world system dust particle kalpas, respectively, because they followed evil companions. Whether tempted by good or threatened by evil, if one casts aside the Lotus Sutra, one destines oneself for hell. President Ikeda continuing, the most important thing in faith is a spirit of non-regression. I will never give back what I've already so arduously struggled to achieve. One must not regress in deed, word, or thought, never losing the spirit to keep struggling. Because when you do, you slandered the Gohanzon. You slandered the law, and you're going to get more karmic retribution. So if you're trying to lighten your load, regression is not the way to do it. Non-regression is the only way to lighten your load. Do you understand? Okay, the most important thing in faith is the spirit of non-regression. One must not regress in deed, word, or thought, never losing the spirit to keep struggling for as long as we live, which means to the last moment of your life, right? Yeah. This is the spirit of Nichiren Buddhism and the heart of the Soka Gakkai. This teaching that Daisaku Ikeda is teaching you in this lecture, independent from any other activity you're doing, is the heart of the Soka Gakkai. In the opening of the eyes, looking back on when he first established his teaching, Nichiren reaffirms his unwavering pledge to initiate a struggle to propagate the law while fully aware of the consequences. I vowed to summon up a powerful and unconquerable desire for the salvation of all beings and never to falter in my efforts, he writes. Now, if you can say something like that, you must perceive yourself as the Buddha. Do you understand that? These kinds of statements, that's not arrogance. That's perceiving the majesty of your life in its undiluted state. Today, we carry out our Buddhist practice in this impure realm of the Sahe world, in a muddied kalpa, in an evil age. We live in a world rife with evil companions, or negative influences that promote slander of the law. We are forced to wage battle with the three obstacles and the four devils and the three powerful enemies. To show actual proof of faith under such circumstances, it is vital that we develop the inner strength and fortitude with which to constantly fight and win over our own inherent negativity or fundamental darkness. So who are we trying to conquer? What are we trying to conquer? That which exists within our own lives, which we have the access to do so. Okay? Nothing outside of our own lives do we have access to. Do you understand? Okay. So, unless we forge the spiritual strength and purity not to be swayed by anything, and that purity is not purity as in you don't make any mistakes or you do everything right. Purity is purity of faith. He's talking about mugiwashing, not to be swayed by anything. To stay true to our vow without faltering. Right? That has nothing to do with being perfect. All right? The flame of our Buddhist practice will be quickly extinguished by the winds of dark, insidious forces, our own fundamental darkness. Culminating and strengthening such a spirit is the key to non-regression. Without a profound commitment and resolve, we cannot defeat the obstacles caused by negative influences. Now, from the very beginning of my practice, I was lucky enough to perceive right away, oh my God, I get so much benefit. If I ever turn my back on this, benefit comes to me so easily. That would be such a slander for somebody like me. I watch other people chant and chant and chant. They seem to really have a hard time doing this. So I make them, okay, I will always be your mouthpiece. I promise to never, ever quit. So I took the vow without knowing any of this on my own because it only seemed appropriate in the beginning of my practice. I don't know why. I just did. I perceived it right away as like, wow, you'd be really an asshole if you got all this benefit and then you ever quit for any reason. So he's trying to instill that same sense in all of you. All right? To highlight the fearfulness of negative influences, the Daishonin cites the examples of Shariputra discarding his Mahayana practice and of two other groups of people who abandoned the way, those who received the seeds of Buddhahood in the remote past and those who received the seeds of Buddhahood from the sons of the great universal wisdom excellence. Who, does everybody know what that reference to the sons of great universal wisdom excellence is? Okay. Major world system dust particle kalpas ago is when he achieved enlightenment as the 16th son of that Buddha, Shakyamuni, according to Shakyamuni. Okay? That's what he's talking about. The sons of the great, okay, Shakyamuni was one of the 16 sons of that Buddha. Okay? They were all teaching the Lotus Sutra all along. What his father taught him was the Lotus Sutra. Right? Okay. So, in Shariputra's case, the Brahmin who begged for his eye, and everybody knows that anecdotal story, right? In Shariputra's case, the Brahmin who begged for his eye was in fact a demon who deliberately intended to cause him to abandon faith. Yeah. Here, Shariputra was defeated not by the Brahmin's reprehensible behavior. Read what he's writing here. He wasn't defeated by the Brahmin, but rather by his own mind or inner weakness. Right? The negativity or fundamental darkness that filled Shariputra's heart after the Brahmin stomped on his eye was fueled by the thought, such people are too difficult to be guided toward enlightenment. As a result, Shariputra abandoned the Mahayana Bodhisattva way and regressed to being a Hinayana practitioner focused solely on personal salvation. Now understand, I have friends that I can talk about all this and they can understand and they can actually be in total agreement about the concept of everybody being a Buddha. And then at the same time, though, they complain about other people. They complain about other aspects of the world, society, and all kinds of stuff. And it's like, I don't get it because they're in conflict with one another. But that's what he's saying. It's real easy to be that confused. This can all make sense. Everybody believes that people shouldn't die of starvation, right? Yep. I mean, that's a pretty standard humanistic reality. I think that's pretty much just about anybody you would walk up to is like, if we could do something to stop starvation, do you think we should do it? I don't think there are too many human beings that would say, shit, no. You know, they would all go, yeah. But having said yeah, how many then go about trying to do anything? No one. Hardly anybody. A few good, do-gooders that are also at the same time propagating religious things in parallel. So, understand that. He's saying, where am I? To highlight, okay. The negativity or fundamental darkness in the middle of the last paragraph on the first column, page 127. Here, Shariputra was defeated not by the Brahman's reprehensible behavior, but rather by his own mind or inner weakness. The negativity or fundamental darkness that filled Shariputra's heart after the Brahman stomped in his eye was fueled by the thought such people are too difficult to be guided toward enlightenment. As a result, Shariputra abandoned the Mahayana Bodhisattva way and regressed to being a Hinayana practitioner focused solely on personal salvation. Of course, this is an episode from when Shariputra was practicing in the Pre-Lotus Sutra Mahayana teaching of carrying out bodhisattva austerities over innumerable kalpas. There is no need for us to directly apply his example to our own practice. We don't have to say, how can I help you? Give me your freaking eye and go, sure. Okay? We're not expected to do that. Okay? And it's there anecdotally for you to understand that that small deviation under what is expressed as reasonable circumstances to be pissed off about something still doesn't give you the ability to not suffer a consequence from negating the Buddha nature of others. Slander is slander is slander is slander is what that's saying. Do you understand? You with me?
Yes.
All right. There's no need for us to directly apply his example to our own practice. Nichiren teaches, after all, that Buddhist practice should follow the time. So in other words, what he's qualifying, President K is saying, all of these things are subject to the reflection of the truth of the moment and where we are. In other words, again, we're not sitting in 13th century Japan under the influence of the Buddhism of the harvest, and nobody knows about the Buddhism of the sowing yet, and all these elemental things that have all been borne out through the practice of normal, ordinary people in daily life, following President Makaguchi, following President Toda, following President Ikeda. Many people have achieved what he's talking about. This isn't something that's unique, actually, okay? But the total number of people that understand and perceive it and have accomplished it are very few. But they're not like only one or two. Do you understand? When I qualify that I've achieved actualization and sensen, and I keep referring to it throughout, he's got it almost written in code sometimes. Do you think it's just him and me? No, of course not. It's many, many, many people. You know, you guys might be listening to me, but other people are listening to other people. And if they're following what President Ikeda is professing as a predication on the Soka philosophy, then they're reading what I'm reading to you. They're basically saying exactly the same thing I'm saying to you, frankly speaking. I hope you all agree with that. Yes. Okay, so he says, of course, Nichiren teaches, after all, that Buddhist practice should follow the time. From one standpoint, however, it could be said that we of the Soka Gakkai regularly undergo spiritual trials, just as trying, or even more so, in the course of our propagation activities in this latter evil age. The heart of the Bodhisattva's supremely noble practice lies in continuing exertion for others' welfare. This is carried out with a truly selfless and even self-sacrificing dedication, despite hostility and rejection, and despite slander and abuse originating from the ignorance, malice, and perversity of people in society. Do you understand what he just said? He said that, just like him, when we find evil, like he would say Nikken Shonin, okay? All right? Personally, President Ikeda, when he's talking about this adverse conflict thing, much of this correlates to him and Nikken, right? But he always talks about the evil of Nikken's actions. He doesn't ever qualify. God, I hate that son of a bitch. Right. Do you understand what I'm saying? He never qualifies it on the basis of a personal issue. It's always predicated on whether someone is distorting the correct teaching or leaving confusion and doubt about what is the correct teaching. And that's why he's got an attitude about Nikon. Okay, because Nikon and the priesthood basically said, we're all screwed. Our enlightenment all depends on a relationship with the high priest of Nichiren Shoshu. And we all go, yeah, right. Okay, and that's what this whole teaching is to provide the breakaway foundation for the substance and the truth that as lay people we've come up with a real, actual, legitimate, foundationalized, theoretically, doctrinally, actual proof proven philosophy that was the original and actual intent of Nichiren in 13th century Japan. Do you understand? That's really only now become embodied in the lives of the practitioners that are practicing Kosen Rufu Buddhism of the Sowing. Do you understand? We do this around the world now. We don't do this in one country of Japan only, with one culture, one homogeneous society, with one race of people. Do you understand? Yes. How could it possibly stay exactly the same? It has to be for the time, because the time now is Kosen Rufu Buddhism of the Sowing. It's worldwide Kosen Rufu of the Sowing. I just spoke for an hour and 15 minutes to somebody in Germany this weekend. It's Kosen Rufu. Do you understand? That's why a philosophy based on a high priest of a sect out of Japan, how are you going to do that? I mean, you know, they already tried. That's how they got kicked out of Brazil. You've got to have something based on the human spirit. It can't be based on a hierarchical relationship with the law where the high priest is the highest link and priests are below him, and then below them are practitioners. Do you understand? So, the heart of the Bodhisattva's supremely noble practice lies in continuing exertion for others' welfare. Others' welfare. That's practice for others. This is carried out with a truly selfless and even self-sacrificing dedication despite hostility and rejection and despite slander and abuse originating from the ignorance, malice, and perversity of people in society. No matter what happens, we of the SGI chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo earnestly before the Gohonzon with a mind that is gentle and forbearing, not with a mind filled with hatred. Okay? A mind filled with the spirit of the Bodhisattva, not that of animality. I've got to go prove I'm right and you're all wrong. All right? We sincerely chant thinking, this person also has the Buddha nature. I will send Nam Myoho Renge Kyo to the pure reservoir of Buddhahood in his or her life and heroically continue engaging in dialogue and taking action for others' happiness. As a result, we can greatly expand our own state of life. Ultimately, what Shariputra was lacking when he abandoned his faith was the spirit of the Lotus Sutra. If he had firmly believed that all people possessed the Buddha nature, then he could certainly have remained impervious to the Brahman's insults. Shariputra should have been an indomitable champion of the human spirit, while the Brahman should have been pitied for his lack of faith in human goodness. At a crucial moment, however, Shariputra's fundamental problem was revealed. He could not maintain his belief in the teaching of universal enlightenment that liberates all people from their inner darkness and delusion. We can also surmise that the two other groups of people who abandoned the way and fell into the hell of incessant suffering for immeasurable kalpas were defeated by negative influences which caused them to doubt the Lotus Sutra's teachings. Okay, he's talking about never disparaging and those people that were taught by the 16 sons of great universal wisdom excellence that rejected the Lotus Sutra, right? Those two groups. The genuine teachings of Shakyamuni and Nichiren Buddhism are based on the Lotus Sutra principle that all people can attain Buddhahood. At the opposite extreme of this truth is fundamental darkness, a bleak, benighted condition in which one cannot recognize that all people equally possess the supremely noble state of Buddhahood. Turning against the Lotus Sutra leads inexorably to the abyss of darkness. Therefore, Nichiren writes, if one casts aside the Lotus Sutra, one destines oneself for hell. The Lotus Sutra recognizes the dignity of all people's lives. It is a teaching that enables us to bring forth our Dharma nature, or inherent enlightenment. It is also a teaching of value creation. Everybody's with me?
Yes.
As the Lotus Sutra spreads, negative influences or evil companions appear without fail, without fail, without fail. That means never do they not. Without fail, in order to stop its progress and topple its practitioners from the elevated state they have attained. They have attained, not given to them. Do you understand? They took action, therefore they progress. All right? Negative influences try to pull us into darkness and negativity and bring us under the influence of oppressive forces. Not only mustn't we be swayed by their workings, it is important that we wholeheartedly combat the evil of slander of the law, which is the enemy of the true teaching. Okay? We mustn't be swayed by the words. It is imperative that we wholeheartedly combat the evil of slander of the law, which is an enemy of the true teaching. Slander of the law is to teach the untrue teaching as being the true teaching, though, as well. Do you understand? When we see what he's talking about, when we see this combat the evil of slander of the law, people misleading others.
Yeah.
Okay? We've taken the action to understand the teaching. We now hear someone teaching it incorrectly. We bring it to their attention. We don't let it pass. All right? A fighting spirit, which is to hear something that you know to be incorrect and having the guts to stand up. A fighting spirit is a non-regressing spirit. If we do not fight energetically, we cannot prevail over the magnetic force of negative influences. Please remember this vital principle for victory in life. Okay, we're going to come back next week, so I will stop there so I'm not in the middle of the middle. Yes. And then we'll probably be able to go into 14, which is on lessening karmic retribution. So
4 minutes left.
I know, but I'm going to go ahead and stop now. All right? Because I don't want to be in the middle of a paragraph and then arbitrarily go over, and it's okay. Living true to one's vow for Kosen Rufu is the noblest path. That's the fundamental closing statements of this chapter 13. Okay? So thank you very much. Have a nice weekend. Bye.
Thank you.